Good evening, Sandum citizens and members of the intermicronational community. A few days ago, this government learned of a new law that was passed in East Kozuc. It was our belief that such a law, despite its intentions and good intentions at that, for the state which it created, or rather, the state which it was created by, was in violation of a common policy and a common foreign affairs policy of the state. In 2009, the the Grand Lamate of Sandufrestigan created a policy which granted recognition to all micronations that it came in contact with. Today, that policy is still in place. Last year, a new policy was created in addition to it. That policy said that this government would be selective. The state would be selective concerning the recognition that it granted. That policy has stood until the until the present time. However, this law in East Cossack was meant to gather citizen support and as a tribute to the Republic of Molossia, a nation which we still do not recognize. This law, we thought, and we still believe, is in violation of this policy. And many people in this community, including Mr. Puglisi of Tiana, Mr. Small of East Kazakh, um, Mr. Fowler of Zealandia, and Mr. Fish of A1, have come and protested against this government concerning such policy. They have called this policy and this act an act of aggression and an act of hostility, and seeing it as an act which places our power over East Kazakh, they have seen it as an act of imperialism. I would just like to say and explain from the side of Sandus that this was never the intention. According to Sandus and according to our foreign policy and our foreign policy belief, and the very belief that we have about micronationalism, is that micronations can only exist and can only continue to exist and continue on to be well-founded in sovereign states if and only if they have the intention of becoming such a sovereign state. By that means, we believe that this state and all of our micronational allies should be professional, should conduct their job in an air of seriousness, understanding the gravity that we are conducting in, the gravity of our governments and the gravity of our states. Of course, we do not usually um, put this air of professionalism and seriousness over our allies, simply for one reason. We try and we try hard to make our allies, or pardon, that's not the correct term, to choose allies, rather, that are professional and are serious. We believe that micronations can only become sovereign states, can only create a state or create a country if they are indeed professional and if they are indeed dedicated to the hard work that is micronationalism. This government, towards such a means, thought it necessary to revoke recognition. At this time, the derecognition papers still have not been drafted. Many people thought it was an act of aggression. It was not an act of aggression. For the simple reason, and it's not an act of imperialism either, for the simple reason, in that we recognize that East Kozuc has the sovereign right and the sovereign liberty and will to create such a law and such a policy. We, however, because we have this idea and this belief of micronationalism, we believe that such a dedicated work can only exist in our allies, and that our allies can only be serious and professional. That is the reason why in the past we have come off and we have been seen as exclusive or as elitist. We are not, in fact, elitist. We believe that all people, that all micronations, can come to this state. There is only one difference, however, is that some choose not to because they see it as a hobby or they see it as a game. We in Sandus, at first we saw it as a game. However, we came to the realization of the power that we have in this country, the power of politics. We came to that realization and we realized that we have the ability to create a sovereign state. Towards those means, and towards the perception of the act of aggression, A1 has continued its policy of containing our state and of fighting against it. Repeatedly, months before and up until now, up until perhaps an hour ago, or half an hour ago, Sandus maintained hopes of creating peace between A1 and Sandus. I have sent repeatedly over the past months messages, hopes, and offerings of peace to A1. All have been rejected. I have even, because I recognize my status in this community and my status in A1, I have appointed a Special Ambassador Thompson, a Sandum citizen, to guide the goal, or to achieve the goal, rather, of creating peace with A1. Even under his ambassadorship, nothing was achieved from both sides. We had always hoped, we still do hope, that A1 can create peace with us. However, we realize today, because of a discussion that was discussed between Mr. Mihansk of Nemkavia, Mr. Puglisi, Mr. Fowler, and myself, we realize that that no longer is necessary, precisely for this reason. Mr. Mihansk proposed to this government, and we are still considering this proposal. He considered and proposed to this government of us adopting the policy that his government has, which is essentially this. His government selectively recognizes micronations. We understand that this will cast away a policy that we've had for 2 years and more. But we believe that it will benefit our state, and I believe that is true. And whilst we still have not affirmed or enacted this policy, that was discussed only a few hours ago. We are of the belief that it will definitely help us. A1's statement was a disappointment to us. We have long hoped for peace. Um, A1, the article in A1, which we believe speaks for the A1 government, simply due to the fact that it was written by or yes, it was written by Mr. Fish himself. We are disappointed in such a statement, which essentially states that A1 shows solidarity with East Kozuc and Secondomia, which have since placed diplomatic embargoes on our government. The country and the government of Zealandia no longer recognizes this state because of the previous acts that they considered aggression. We have no intention of creating aggression. We have never. Though I am sure that my behavior and my attitude may have been seen as aggressive before, and towards such a means I hope to compensate and justify them. However, at this current time, we are currently trying and endeavoring to create a sovereign state, which means that the benefits of our allies are required. It was in May of this year that A1 decided to de-recognize us, and that alone came as a shock because A1 has, in the past, never been very vocal with us, or pardon me, they have been vocal, but we have always come back. And under this policy that is being proposed today, we no longer feel a need to have A1's recognition. I have thus forth called back Special Ambassador Thompson, and Sandus will begin to create this new policy. We will draft a list of micronations which we deem acceptable towards the means that we have addressed and created previously, and we will put them forth in our state, and those micronations we will recognize. I am not certain if East Kozuc will be on that list. Indeed, I am not certain if many micronations will be on that list. I am certain that some of our oldest and strongest allies will be, because this government has always had a very pristine and sincere power in the way of diplomacy. We have always prided ourselves on our allies. We have always had the intention of coming to the defense of our allies. And even though at times we believe that those allies may not have come to our defense, we will continue to come to their defense, because it is a Native American tradition. It's a tradition of my tribe to defend our guests. That is a sacred tradition. This policy will most likely come into effect over the next few weeks. About 20 days from now is the autumn equinox. I intend that such policy will be finished by then. Apart from that, there is very little other news. I would like to wish you all a very good evening, and thank you for listening.